This is Join Us in France, episode 214. Bonjour, I'm Annie, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we talk about France, its many quirks, its history, its language, and of course, destinations and itineraries in France you want to hear about because hopefully you'll be visiting soon. On today's episode, Christmas shopping in Paris and how to enjoy the Christmas season in Paris. I'm in Paris right now and it's so much fun. I just had to share with my listeners. I'll list the Christmas markets, the best department stores, and covered passages at the Christmas season. In this episode, you'll also learn about where you can go to see beautiful nativity scenes, which we call Crêche in French, Christmas concerts in Paris, and how to go about attending a midnight mass at Notre Dame. For my personal update, I'll also talk about the Gilet Jaune protests that are going on in Paris these days. Join Us in France is brought to you by Patreon supporters and Addicted to France, the small group tour company for people who want to enjoy France to the fullest with zero stress and with yours truly having all the stress. Check out our upcoming tours in May 2018 on addictedtofrance.com. Well, it's Christmas time again in Paris. The Christmas season starts late November in France, and the decorations don't usually come down until too late. January sometime. I don't know why we're like that. But where do you go to see Christmas lights and Christmas decorations in Paris? Well, there are some everywhere, but here are a few of my favorites. Let's start with the Christmas markets in Paris. I'm going to list 8 of them plus a general idea of where you can find some. So the first one is that, not the one on the Champs-Élysées because it's not on this year. The man who put that on, his name is Marcel Campon. He's the master carnival organizer in Paris. Well, he got in the crosshairs of the mayor of Paris, Madame Hidalgo, and also of the president of the country, Mr. Macron. So, where did that Champs-Élysées Christmas market move to? Not very far. It's just on the other side of the Place de la Concorde, along the Jardin des Tuileries, on the Rue de Rivoli side. Now, it's called the Tuileries Christmas Market. It was morning when I walked by, so everything was closed, but there are probably, a couple dozen little chalets there. I'm pretty sure it's the same, not very classy, not very interesting mishmash of overpriced French food, mulled wine served in, huge plastic glasses. It's like a half a gallon of wine that these people are drinking. There's ornaments from China, imported berets. I mean, it's fine for an hour, but I definitely would not travel great distances just for that. And I would be a little surprised if that market was still on in 2019, as a matter of fact, because, the event organizer is not in the good graces of the politicians in power right now. The second one is the Christmas market at Beaubourg. This is the famous Beaubourg Museum in the Marais. There are about 50 chalets there. There are activities for the kids, places to buy Christmas trees, and more. It has a good reputation. The number 3 is about the same deal, about 50 chalets, activities for the kids, Christmas trees, that sort of thing. It's under the canopy at Les Halles. So this is at the entrance of a major and pretty nice underground shopping mall, and I'm sure the shopping mall is also decorated, but they added a touch of Christmas on the surface as well. Number 4, so since the mayor of Paris booted the Christmas market off the Champs-Élysées, she invited some Christmas attractions on the big plaza in front of the Mairie de Paris, so the city hall. There's not a lot there. It's mostly activities for the kids, from what I understand. But if you're walking by, Why not? Number 5, near Notre Dame on Square Viviani. That's right by Shakespeare and Company, for those of you who have been to Paris before. It's pretty small, very small actually, maybe a dozen little things, but it's supposed to be nice. And it's right by Notre Dame, so it's easy to get to, and also probably it would be a good photo shoot. I wanted to go today to get the photo, but then it was raining and there was the Gilet Jaune everywhere, and I was like, so I gave up on it. Number 6, Saint-Germain-des-Prés. It has a small Christmas market around the Saint-Germain-des-Prés church, right by the Saint-Germain-des-Prés metro stop. It's small but charming, and of course, like anything else in Saint-Germain-des-Prés, it's probably very pleasant. Number 7, the Christmas market at Place des Abbesses in Montmartre. I don't love Montmartre, but Place des Abbesses is cute. That one is not huge, and if you're in Montmartre anyway, you might as well check it out. Number 8, La Défense Christmas Market. This one is out of the way for most visitors and not particularly different from all the other ones, but if you're in the area, why not? And number 9, all the other Christmas markets that will pop up in various neighborhoods around Paris. They are only normally there for a few days during the Christmas season, so maybe they pop up on Saturday night or something and Sunday, and then they're gone. So I'm not going to list them. There's too many of them. But you may run into something fun as you walk around Paris, depending on where you are staying. Now, Christmas decorations and Christmas shopping in Paris. That's a biggie. Number 1, of course, is Galeries Lafayette on Boulevard Haussmann. This is the one you have to go see. It's gorgeous. The main event there is the giant Christmas tree in the center of the store. It is different every year. It is gorgeous. It's creative. It's also very packed. I was there today. There was a lot of people. Number 2, Printemps Haussmann is right next to it, also on Boulevard Haussmann. It has lovely windows that you can see from the outside. Again, it's classy, it's creative, and again, it was mobbed today when I went, and today is Saturday, December 1st, 2018. Number 3, Bon Marché, that's on 24 Rue de Sèvres, sorry. Despite it's by the Sèvres metro station. Despite its name, it's called Bon Marché, but this is not a cheap department store. But the products are really, really top quality, and the decorations are lovely, and they are really creative again because they can hire creative people to do this right. And not just reusing the same plasticky crap every year. Number 4, Les Halles in Châtelet-Les Halles, right? It's a big mall. It's the biggest shopping mall in Paris, and it has more approachable prices than the 3 department stores I just named. And it's easy to get to because pretty much all the lines, no, not all of them, but a lot of trains and metro stations and metro lines stop there. Number 5, the mall at the Louvre. That's called the Carousel du Louvre. It's nice, it's classy, and as a visitor, I suspect you'll be in the area at some point, so check out the underground mall at the Louvre. Number 6, Avenue Montaigne. It doesn't get any classier than that. It's high fashion stores, beautiful decorations. I can't afford anything there, but I like to go see it anyway. Number 7, Place Vendôme. And when you're tired, that's really close to Jardin des Tuileries, right? When you're tired of all the plasticky stuff on the Christmas market at the Tuileries, make your way down to Rue de Rivoli and to the Place Vendôme. It's classy, it's understated. It's one of the most expensive and gorgeous plazas in Paris. You have to see it anyway, and you might as well see it with the nice little Christmas trees all around it. Number 8, for those of you who like to venture out a little, Bercy Village, so the village at Bercy is lovely. It's not really a village. I mean, it's right in the middle of the city, but it's an outdoor mall that gets nice boutiques, nice stores, and a nice Christmas feel to it. And so that, again, that's Bercy Village. And then number 9, the last one is BVH in the Marais. It's really close to the Mairie de Paris, and it looks lovely, and the price ranges are, it's middle class kind of prices. So this is easier for most people to do some shopping in. Number 10, in the Bourse, Opéra, Grand Boulevard area, there are 4 covered passages, and 3 of them are all lined up in a row. They are incredibly popular with French people because these are places where you can find unique gifts. The whole Bourse, Opéra, Grand Boulevard, the whole area has great shopping streets, so it's worth going to just go shopping. But these 4 covered markets are really good. Now, I'm going to say not all covered markets are great, but these, yes, they are great. And they are well worth a visit, especially in the days leading up to Christmas. I saw a shop that makes custom canes, walking canes for older folks or people with mobility issues. Those were really gorgeous. I saw several bookstores. Most of them sell old and rare books. There are also flower shops, cafes, wine stores, vintage clothing, stores for collectors, stamps, whatever collections you like, toy stores, stores that sell decorative items. And not a single one was a brand that you would recognize. At least no brands that you'll find everywhere in the world in shopping malls. It's possible some of these places have 2 or 3 stores in Paris, but they're not big brands. So these are one-of-a-kind stores, and there were so many people there on Saturday, and probably today on Sunday it's going to be the same, that I had a hard time seeing and getting into the stores. If you can avoid going on a Saturday or a Sunday, you'll be glad you did, because you'll be mobbed. But maybe that's part of the ambiance, I guess. My niece and I started with Passage Panorama. We skipped Jouffroy, which is just across the street from Panorama, because it looked really full. And then when we went on to Passage Verdot. But the 3 that lined up are Panorama, Jouffroy, and Verdot. And of course, there's also the Vivienne covered passage, which is also wonderful in that area. So if you're in the Galerie Lafayette Printemps area, start with Panorama, and if you're at Palais Royal, start with Vivienne. The whole area is great. So put on your raincoat, because it rains a lot in Paris in December, and look around. And for more information about the covered passages in Paris, you can listen to episode 29 called Explore the Covered Passages in Paris, where Elise gives us the historical background and tells us all about the history of those wonderful things. Now, let's talk about a few crèches. So that's the nativity scenes and Christmas concerts around Paris. There are so many, I can't name all of them, but I'll give you just a handful. So this year in 2018, and I'm not sure if they're going to do this every year, the church near Butte-Chaumont, it's called Église Saint-Jean-Baptiste de Belleville, and it'll be all written out in the show notes, they're putting on a collection of crèche and miniature biblical scenes. It's out of the way, but it sounds like a cool event. Not sure if it'll be on there next year again. Number 2, crèche at La Madeleine, the church La Madeleine. It's much more central. A different contemporary crèche is created every year and presented at this church. I have not seen it, but it's supposed to be lovely. Number 3, Notre Dame de Paris displays a lovely crèche every year, and it's put on by volunteers from Arles. So that's the city of all the Christmas Santon de Noël. So make sure you look around for the crèche inside of Notre Dame. It's such a huge church, you might not see it if you go in and out too fast. Now let me give you the times of the Christmas Mass at Notre Dame. It's on December 24th. There's one at 4:30 p.m., 6 p.m., 8 p.m., 11 p.m., and midnight. And on Christmas Day, on the 25th, they have Mass at 8:30 a.m., 10 a.m., 11:30 a.m., 12:45 p.m., and 6 6:30 p.m. So a lot of different Christmas masses at Notre Dame, because obviously that's a very popular thing for people to do, especially Christians. Number 5, and the last thing I'm going to mention, is the American Church in Paris. They have services and they have sing-alongs, but you should check their website for details. There are also a ton of Christmas concerts all over Paris, with tickets for sale on a website called Classic Tix. So ClassicTix. So if you're in Paris and you want to go attend a Christmas concert, you will find them all listed there. Thank you, Paul Reed, Joe Scott, Rod Cummings, Blair Skinner, and Isabel Mountbatten for pledging to support the show on Patreon this week. And thank you also, Tammy Medeiros, for upping your pledge. Very nice of you. And my thanks to all the other patrons who support the show month after month. Thank you so much for giving back. I'm at 146 patrons this year. Only 54 to go to meet my goal of 200 by the new year. I hope it happens. Let's see it. Anyway, thank you so much for all of you who support the show via Patreon. And to do that, go to patreon.com/join us, Patreon. Join us with no dashes or spaces or anything like that. Okay, so I refrained for talking about this last week because I don't really want to talk about politics on the show, but there's been several questions about the Gilet Jaune, and this does tie into French culture, so let me explain a little bit. You have to understand that gas is super expensive in France. Imagine paying $6.44 per gallon in the US. And that's how much we pay on average in France right now. It's gone up a lot, especially for people who run diesel cars. It's gone up 14% this year, according to my calculations. And I do run a diesel car myself. So much of that increase has to do with increase in taxes, although some of it also has to do with the price of petroleum products that go up. So people are not happy about that. And who would be? I mean, honestly, why was there such a steep increase all of a sudden? Well, President Macron wants to incentivize people away from diesel cars because they pollute more than unleaded gasoline cars. And this is exactly the opposite of what previous French presidents have done for decades, because for a long, long time, diesel gas was cheaper in France, quite a bit cheaper than regular unleaded or any sort of unleaded. And also you could drive farther on the 1 gallon of diesel. And so, of course, that was a huge incentive for people to get diesel cars. And also a diesel car usually runs longer than an unleaded car. Anyway, but now we're stuck because these cars pollute more. And so the new president, decided to raise taxes on diesel very quickly in order to put the message across that, people like me might want to stop driving these big diesel cars. So today in Le Monde, in the newspaper, they were suggesting that maybe a solution would be switching to a kerosene tax instead of a gasoline tax, because that would impact air travel. But the poorest folks who are protesting in the streets right now, although I'm not sure all of them are that poor, they drive, they don't fly. So maybe they'll do that eventually. There's no way to know how long these protests will go on. But probably a few more weeks anyway. Typically, let me put it this way. Christmas is coming up. I would assume that it's going to be getting worse and worse and worse up until Christmas. And then because everybody's going to be on vacation, they're going to be thinking about their oysters and their duck and they'll drop the protests. That's my guess, but I don't know. Typically in France, protests are really well organized. They always have a designated leader who meets with the authorities, and the authorities grant permits to protest. They have to announce dates and all that. But this is very different because it was started by a long-haul trucker on Facebook who called people to put on the yellow jacket that we all have in our cars in case of emergency and go make a paint of themselves anywhere they wanted to. No meetings, no permits. It was completely random. And because it was so easy, you could just put on, open your trunk, take out the Gilet Jaune, put it on, and go protest in the next village. I don't think people protested in their own village or in their own cities. They typically, didn't. Anyway, I don't know these things. I'm just guessing. But anybody who doesn't like Macron joined in, no matter what their beef with him is. And so in Paris, today, they were chanting Macron tête de con, which it means like Macron stupid head, but in French, it's the perfect third grader insult because it rhymes. I mean, it's so easy. Macron tête de con. I mean, like any old idiot could have come up with that, but everybody was chanting that in the streets. It was crazy. French presidents always have a horrible approval ratings. I don't think Macron is any worse than any of the other ones. So that's not new. It doesn't mean that he won't get reelected. It means nothing. It just means that people like to vent against whoever is the president. And it's really not surprising when they riot in the 8th arrondissement and Place de la République and Place de la Bastille and all of these. But on the Champs-Élysées, that was new, right? So I don't know when the protests will stop because French people are really, really patient with protests, even if they don't agree. And they will tell you that they don't agree with the violence and that there's always infiltrators. And it's true. And that most of these people are peaceful. All the ones I ran into today, we were stuck in a big metro car full of them. And they all seem to be very fine. I mean, there was nothing wrong with them. They were singing on top of their lungs, and I don't think they had been drinking. Maybe a few had been, but not too many. Anyway, it was fine. Most French people support this right to protest, but I think the security measures will get even stronger, and there will be more arrests. I think today were a couple hundred people arrested, As far as what you can do when you're visiting Paris when this happens, well, you have to know that when this happens in Paris especially, or in big cities, any big cities, they always close metro stations and they reroute bus routes. So the best thing to do on a day like this is to plan on walking. That's what we did today. So it's December 1st, 2018. We saw a lot of protesters. We even saw some, heavy black smoke. We saw dozens of fire and police vehicles rushing by. Probably somebody had lit some tires on fire or a car on fire or something. I don't know. We just walked in the other direction. And that's what I recommend you do if you're in Paris when there are protests of any sort. It could be this one or some other one. It's going to happen over and over and over again. It's a French thing. It's in the culture. It will blow over eventually. But it will take some weeks because, like I said, all sorts of discontented people are joining a movement without a head, without a direction. Anybody who's unhappy can just go protest, So does that mean France is going to hell in a handbasket? No, this is normal for France. So, don't worry, be happy. Just walk away from the protesters and do plan on disruptions in public transportation in big cities. And also, in Toulouse today, what they did is they forced the barriers open at the toll booths at the exit. And so in Toulouse, people are happy about this. It's cool, They're like, hey, I don't have to pay the toll today. In Paris, it's not quite so happy-go-lucky because in Paris, it attracts a lot of people who just want to pick a fight with the police. Honestly, that's how it goes all the time. And if it's not this, it's going to be something else. Show notes and photos for this episode are going to be on joinusinfrance.com/214. And we have a ton of other Christmas episodes. As a matter of fact, if you go to the website, joinusinfrance.com, if you go to interests, and we'll go down that list, and at the bottom is Christmas in France. We have 5 or 6 or something, and I'm about to do another one pretty soon. And I'm going to appeal to you to tell your friends about the podcast. If you are listening to me right now, you figured out a way to listen to Join Us in France. You can get the podcast anywhere you like to get your podcast, generally speaking. But lots of people who plan to visit France do not listen to podcasts in their daily lives. Does that mean that this resource is off limits to them? I hope not. But you do have to tell them that they can listen to Join Us in France on Pandora, on Spotify, on Alexa, on Google Home, on YouTube, and on joinusinfrance.com as well. And if they have a favorite podcast app, that will work as well. As far as social media is concerned, Join Us in France is on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Pinterest. And I love it when you share episodes of this podcast with your own friends and your own circles. And I am pretty confident that they will thank you for sharing it with them. And how do I know that they're going to be happy if you share the podcast with them? Well, I know this from the feedback I keep getting from listeners. For example, Elena, she said, "We just had the most wonderful trip to Paris. Thank you, Annie, for your wonderful podcast. It helped me to plan our activities, and we had a trip we will remember for the rest of our lives." And Thomas, he said, "The group and the podcast have been instrumental in my return to France after 14 years. I leave tomorrow for home in the USA after 10 days, and our trip was amazing. Thank you all for your insights and expertise. I found out that France is and always will be a love of mine." And one last one. "I just arrived back from a 1.5 week trip around France. Thank you so much to this group and Annie and Elise for their wealth of knowledge and they provide with the podcast. Thanks to Annie, when I saw the yellow jackets protesting in the south of France, I knew it was just part of the experience of being in France. I had been prepping for the trip for a few months, listening to episode after episode on a daily basis. So helpful. France was beautiful, as were its people. Everyone we interacted with was very patient with our minimal French, but we always made it work. Communication happened. The trip was unforgettable. I cannot wait to start planning my return to France again." So see, do tell your friends about it. It's a good resource. And about the Join Us in France group on Facebook too, because all of you share wonderful things that you've noticed, and you're a wealth of information, just the same way that I hope I am. So if you want to recognize other show listeners while visiting Paris, check out our t-shirts, tote bags. Look for the green button on joinusinfrance.com on any of the episode page. And to connect with me, email Annie at joinusinfrance.com, or you can leave a message at 1-801-806-1015. And like I just said, you can join the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook. But when you do, answer the questions or I will not let you in. Have a great week of trip planning, and I will talk to you next Sunday. Au revoir. The Join Us in France travel podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2018 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.